Welcome back to the Beyond the Coach podcast. I am one of the hosts, Kelsey Nanini.
I'm the other host, Chris Sweet. Why do I feel like we're like, and this is Tweedledee and Tweedledum?
That's how I feel this morning. I I was telling Chris
Brain
this.
Cell
Like,
1 and Brain Cell 2 coming to you
we're
kind
starting
of
our
live.
podcast off 30 minutes late because I have no idea why technology hates me. And I have all the things necessary to have such a cool podcast. I have this little doobop, which is probably obviously not really that cool in comparison to Joe Rogan, but it's something, right? And then I have these. I got these. I was so pumped to have headphones like Chris. I
I
have
was
a
gonna say
microphone.
for anyone listening, she's showing her headphones. She's showing her. It looks
Oh
like
yeah,
a
I should say that.
DJ board and a mic, and she's got a whole. She looks like she's ready to go make the best track ever, and
If
it
you're on
just
YouTube,
ain't.
I was feeling good. I mean, these are kind of funky looking to be honest, but I was feeling
Mine, as if mine are any better. Mine make me look like Dumbo, and yours at least fit your face. So
I was just so excited to look like a real podcaster, and then I'm using which makes me think that last week this was not my audio.
I don't think it was.
So what the fuck? How
For
did it work?
anybody who is so good at technology, just like slide into Kelsey and I's DMs and just help
I'm just
us.
so perplexed. I have everything connected into my laptop. It's also connected that studio DJ set was connected the same way my webcam is. So I got a webcam upgrade. I'm feeling good about that. I had to get that with my headphones to get the free 1 day delivery. Thanks, Amazon. So I'm just a little bit frustrated this morning, but you know what? It's okay because we're potting. So how are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. I'm leaving for Florida tomorrow, which will be fun. Just visiting my aunt. And for anybody who's in New England right now, just the idea of being able to walk outside, like what I am truly looking forward to most is being able to wake up and go for a walk. Like go
Yep.
outside, put my headphones in, and then just enjoy my life because we've been stripped of that privilege for the last few months.
I can't kind of it gets cold, but not New England cold. I don't know how y'all do it. I could not.
Yeah, yeah, but it'll be good heading to Florida and continuing to work obviously while I'm there. That's just one nice thing of being an entrepreneur is you can work from anywhere. So Kelsey and I have so many trips kind of just happening and flowing and ideas that we have too. And it's just nice when you can be like, hey, like we can work and pick up wherever we are. So that's kind of the plan while I'm in Florida.
It's the
Other than
perfect
that, uneventful.
just work.
My mic is working. My headphones are working just fine. So I'm not having the same technical frustrations.
The worst part was I was before our coach's cubicle, which shameless plug. If you are a coach that wants a good community, join our school group. The link is always in the episode description and in the description on YouTube. But before the school group, I was so excited. I got up today. I put on my Flutter Habit lashes so I could feel a little bit more, alive. And I set up the podcast equipment. I got our YouTube out. I was prepping for everything. I felt good. And I was like, oh, podcast stuff is ready before we even have to get on the coach's cubicle call. Get on the call and something just doesn't get off the call. And I'm like, I'm all set up for the pod this morning.
The nature of running a business and having technology.
I know. Why can't I just have a little fairy that does it for me?
I wish.
But anyways, with that being said, business. Let's get into the episode today. We're talking about burnout, but also kind of a little bit of our business journeys. And in a couple weeks we'll have episodes for actually it's probably in a month that those will release. But more talking about Chris and I's fitness journey and just how we got to where we are now. But we kind of wanted to talk about our journeys in business and how we've navigated burnout, imposter syndrome, just really diving into what that all has looked like for us and how to help you if you're going through it. So Do you want to start us off, Chris, and just kind of like talk about what your journey in business has been? Just overview.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this episode because Kelsey and I both have like slightly different. We've both been in business very similar periods of time, but we have different, almost like character arching moments, character building moments in our journey of you had stripped stuff down at one point. I was debating stripping stuff down at one point. I had even gotten to the point in my business where I was like, do I just want to dissolve this and like start new, start fresh? Like I've had so many different feelings and emotions on my journey, moments of excitement, moments of sadness, moments of confusion. And I think when newer coaches are getting into the space, it's easy to look at people like Kelsey and I and be like, well, they have it all together and they've had the perfect journey and they've built this amazing business. And like, I'm here to tell you guys, it's a roller coaster, like the same way that the weight like scale, the progression of weight, with someone who's trying to lose weight is not going to be linear. The same goes for business. And that's very much where like Kelsey and I's journeys kind of have been, is like it hasn't been a linear progression for us. We didn't get here by just continuing to excel higher and higher. We got here by feeling the lows. And so I started, online training, 2019, 2020 timeframe when it was gyms were closing down. It was when we first saw the really big push of the online space. And at that point, like I remember telling myself, like, you just need to get 10 clients paying $300 a month and you'll be set. Like you'll be good to go. Had no idea what KPI tracking was even at that point, like no clue whatsoever. Why is this happening on here? I know for you guys who are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, the freaking thumbs up thing that the Mac cam does now, I don't know how to turn it off. But I was not KPI tracking. I was not like, when I first started my business, I had no freaking clue how to run a business. Like that was the big thing. And for anyone who's getting into business, you're not meant to know how to run a business. Like you're not meant to understand that ball game, especially if you're getting into it from the direction of like passion and coaching, especially if you're coming from like the in-person realm. It's a very different ballpark when you start moving into the online space because there are so many other factors that you have to think about that when I had started my business 2019, 2020, the last thing I was worried about was my KPI tracking. The last thing I was worried about was like tracking my leads and my sales. I was just more focused on getting clients in the door and serving my clients. Like that, like 2019, 2020, I was just so focused on serving and less focused on scaling and building because I don't think I knew that was even like a full option. Like the first time I ever hired a business mentor and they were like, yeah, like you can make like 10, 20K plus months. I was like, what? Like coming from like somebody who literally was making not enough money out of college, like just the idea of being able to make 10K a month, I was like, what? Like that's an option? That's like, whoa, whole new world. And that was when I kind of saw a transition for myself happen, like 2021, 2022. I was less focused on the service and more focused on the scaling, and always felt like it was one or the other. Like I got really lost in like choosing one or the other and not seeing this duality that could exist, which is where I'm really excited today with the decisions that obviously Kelsey and I have had to merge our companies together. It's just been amazing because I feel like I can have that duality. I can serve, but I can also scale. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. But I think that comes with delegating, taking things off your shoulders, knowing your boundaries, knowing your limitations. So it's been quite the like curvature at that. At one point I had a team as big as 10 people. I think that was like the peak of the amount of people I had. And to be completely honest, I was not happy in business. I was not happy with myself. I realized that like it just wasn't for me. And I really fell out of love with business at that point when I was full scale mode and full delegation mode, and less of where I'm at now. And so that's when I decided to scale back. I had decided to not dissolve the business, but what's the word I'm looking for? Not dissolve, but
like almost like a restructure.
There's a specific word I'm looking for. I decided to scale back, reduce. There's a word for it, guys. There's a freaking
I'm
word.
not saying words,
It'll
so
come to me at the
I'm gonna
most
that.
random moment. I essentially decided to scale back the company. I was like, you know what? Like, I just am not feeling passionate about this. I was also going through the peak of a lot of personal stuff going on. Like, our dog had gotten cancer. We had moved from North Carolina to Massachusetts. There was a lot of stressors happening at once. And I couldn't keep it up. And so with that, I decided to scale back the team. Was having a much smaller team. I also naturally had people
Downsize? Was that the word?
downsize. Yes. Downsize, guys. All
I didn't
right.
mean to interrupt you, but you said scale back, and I was like, downsize.
Downsize. That is what I decided to do. I also had a very natural, like I had a couple team members, just like one found a different job, one got pregnant. Like they had just kind of naturally decided to part ways. And I kind of took it as a sign of like, this is just meant to happen. Like I always believe in the fact that like either you do it or eventually the universe does it for you. Eventually the decision gets made for you if you're ever debating something. And I had been debating this downsize for a while before I decided to really speak on it. And then at that point, I was like, okay, these people are like naturally leaving. Like clearly I'm being pushed in this direction. I didn't feel this pull to replace them right away. So yeah, I've just been kind of all over the place on that.
Yeah. Kind of very similar, but also not like I feel like around the same time we're like making some changes in our business, or maybe I don't remember the exact timeline, but I think I really like I tried so hard back in like 2017, 2018 when I was training in person. I was like, I'm going to make the online thing work because my online coach was doing it. And I was like, all I have to do is really like do the similar thing she's doing and just deliver programs via email and send voice memos. Like it just seemed so easy to me to kind of take how she was coaching me and just apply it and figure out how to get clients. But I had no strategy. I was just like, let's just throw the line in and hope for something, like hope I catch something. And it just was not clicking. And so that's when I went to Orange Theory. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give up on like that, like running my own side of business because I just didn't have the proper structure. I didn't have the proper plan and I didn't know what that looked like. I just figured like I could just do it and it would happen. And that's just not the case. And then once COVID hit, I was like, okay, well, I kind of have to go online. Like, I kind of have to do something. I can't just be collecting an unemployment check and just sitting here on the couch all day, hoping to come back to a gym that's opening and closing because of the restrictions in Washington. Um, but I think when I really started to like scale my business up in 2022, because I started online technically in 2020, but I just didn't have any like, and then I was doing in person in my garage. I just never had a structure. That's true. I was like building a business on crumbled foundation, constantly trying to like build the same house over and over again with a found like that was literally built in like a swamp or like an ancient burial ground that was cursed. Like that's how I feel. And so when I finally hired my first business coach, I remember I had just had surgery on my knee and I was like calling my husband in from the other room and I was like, "Hey, like I'm on this call. I'm gonna pay 7 grand and like get a business coach." And I was like, "I'll pay monthly, it'll be fine." And he's like, "Well, what's the difference? Is there like a discount to pay in full?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, let's just pay it in full. Like if you're gonna see the money back, like let's just do it." Also, like we love a supportive husband. Like, I think since then it kind of cascaded into like now he just trusts that if I'm gonna make a big decision, it's going to work out and I will like find a way to make it happen. So it was kind of that almost like if you have a husband that's not, and I'm not saying how to like run a marriage, but like you have to have support in your home if you want to grow. And I think that's maybe a talk for another day. But anyways, that business coach just kept telling me like kind of like you said, like, oh, there is a possibility to make 10K, 20K. And like the first month I was with them, like I literally 10x'd my revenue from the month before. It was insane. I just saw substantial growth all of a sudden. But the thing was, like, I knew how to get people in, but I did not know how to run a business. I had no idea that I should be tracking monthly recurring revenue. I had no idea that I should be KPI tracking. I had no idea that there was margins that I should be keeping track of because the thing was, I was just taught to grow, to just hire more and grow more and everything will take care of itself. But before I knew it, within 3 months of like aggressive, maybe like 5 months of aggressively growing my business, I had a team of 6 people, or well, including myself. So I had 5 contractors that were working under me. I saw like a stall in our lead generation. It was like I was building for temporary gain and not for long-term success. And so I ended up having like dissolving my company. Well, I shouldn't say that. I stripped it down to the foundation again, and it was just me. So a year into like aggressively building, all of a sudden it was just me again. And I did have to let go of all these contractors, and just ended the contract. And it was such a strange time. I was burnt out. And the reason was I never actually learned how to run a business. Like I was just doing it for fun. And like you said, like my main goal was always to provide a high quality level of service, but I grew so fast that like I wasn't able to understand what was going on. I wasn't having the tough conversations with like coaches and clients and being able to manage everything. It was like I was just not mature enough to handle that. And I also didn't have guidance of like no one tells you what to do when you are like on the brink of burnout, and like where do you go from there? Like I just had no idea, and the only answer I knew was like I'm just going to start back up on my own. And that was kind of what, my husband had said all along. He's like, what if you would have not hired when you did and just kept growing at that point? You would have been one, making way more money and learning how to build a business along with it, and not hiring until you absolutely needed to, versus hiring once you hit like a certain income month and it was like, okay, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And then that brought me to here. Like I realized after being alone, I was like, I've always been an athlete. I love having to do something for someone else. I love having someone else as like fuel for me to help them succeed, and like having that team camaraderie. And so I did hire again in May of 24, and then we merged. So it's like now I find that because I went through all that shit, literal shit, like I was literally trudging through shit, and I was burnt out. I was like so upset all the time. I was just like so questioning if I was doing the right thing. I was looking for jobs on Indeed because I was like, I'm not meant to be a business owner. I'm not meant to do this. But then it always came back to like, there's not another option for me. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. I just have to have the right strategy.
Yeah.
And now I feel so much better about it. So going back to you, like when you were burning out, what do you feel like led to it? And how did you handle it?
I feel like a lot of my burnout was due to comparison. I'm friends with a lot of business owners, a lot of coaches. I think that's an amazing part of being in the online space, is making those connections. But I was constantly comparing my business to everyone else's and kind of letting like other people's businesses and where they were at like call the shots on my own business. And that was not fair to my company. That was not what I should have been doing. Like I was spending more money than I should have, investing in things more than I should have. And I needed to just choose slowness. Like I should have slowed down. And I think it's easy to get, trigger happy when you are making extra money and you're having these hires and you're having these leads coming in and you're having all this stuff like grow at once. I kind of like lost myself, to be honest. Like I did not feel like myself. I completely burnt out in 2023. But I think I ignored the burnout. I think I was just continuing to try to operate at this high level, but I had all these other things going on. And I think I was listening too much to everybody else's opinions and not enough to my gut and to my intuition. I think deep down I knew there were certain hires I should have never made. There were certain financial decisions that I chose to do that I shouldn't have. There were certain decisions I made for the company as a whole that I shouldn't have. And I did not put myself in an arena with enough people who were winning. And that's exactly what led me back to working with our mentor, Kendall, in 2024 was I needed to be in a winning circle again. And I felt like everyone around me was kind of struggling too, which made me feel like it almost validated my struggles. It almost validated that like, okay, if I'm in the trenches, it's okay to be here and there's no way out of it. And I'm just going to always feel this way. Whereas when you put yourself, I think, in the right groups of people, it goes a really, really, really long way there. So a mixture of it all attributed together. I didn't listen to my intuition. I didn't take care of myself a whole lot during that time. And yeah, I just didn't prioritize what like I really wanted. And I try to make a point of asking my own clients, and both in business and in coaching, I always like to ask like, what do you want? Like genuinely, like what do you want? Because I think it's easy to feel silent sometimes when, you're in a program that maybe is meant to grow you to X amount of months, or meant to grow you to this point, and you feel like that's the only way to see progress, and that's the only way to celebrate yourself.
Yeah. Um, that's so true. I feel like very similar to me. I was just listening to external. It was like when I made the decision to hire a second assistant coach, it was almost just for clout. Like I didn't need a second assistant coach at that time. At that time, eventually, if I would have been sustainably growing, sure. But it was like I had 3 months that were really big, and I was like, "Oh, time to hire again. Oh, time to hire again." But I didn't know how to manage 5 people. Like I was unaware of that, and I had a lot of growing to do, and I don't feel like I ever poured in myself enough. I also literally moved across the country 3 months into my like expansive growth. I started business coaching 2 months into that, which is insane. I should not have been doing that, but I did for like 6 months. And then I realized my business was suffering because I didn't have a solid foundation in my business to be able to do other things. So I feel like a lot of my burnout was similar of I was listening to everyone else, but I wasn't doing what felt right to me. And it was just like do this, do that. It was very prescriptive versus what feels in integrity for you, what feels in alignment for you. And I feel like I had to go through all those different phases of business. And when I let my team go, like, I loved my team. Like we got along super well, we had fun, but it really fell back on me. I did not know how to run a business, and I was just again throwing the line in and hoping it caught. Like I just was kind of there was no plan. There was no planning. There was no real tracking. I mean, I was supposed to be tracking, but I was like, ah, it's fine. Everything's fine. But like I was taking a loss and I had no idea. I also saw a certain number. I saw, 5 figures, multi 5 figures in a month. And I was like, cool, I can pay myself all of this amount. And then before I knew it, I was like, where's all the money going? Like I was just not tracking it. And before I knew it, I was paying myself $2,000 a month. And at one point my company was making 23,000 a month. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like the math ain't mathin'. So I feel like that was a lot of my burnout was just that. And it was funny because when I let my team go, a flood, at least 15 to 15 coaches from different like business coaching experience I had were asking me the same thing. They're like, I've been thinking about letting my team go. And how did you do it? What was the process you went through? Why did you do it? And I was like, this isn't something that, this isn't normal. Like, it shouldn't be this way to where so many coaches are dealing with this feeling of burnout and of like building businesses that they don't love. Like, that was alarming to me. I was like, wow, that's great. Like, why is this a thing? Um,
Yeah, no, that's such a good point, because I feel like a lot of the coaches who came up in, again, the 2019, 2020, 2021 era, it was a lot easier to scale. It was a lot easier to grow. But with that, we were growing, but we weren't learning how to actually run a sustainable company. We were more focused on, okay, we're bringing all these people in, we're filling our assistant coaches rosters. But similar to you, it's like I wasn't paying attention to my margins as much. I wasn't paying attention to what I was paying myself. And like I would look at my accounts and be like, why am I still stressed about money, even if my company is making multi 5 figure months? And I'm like, okay, this doesn't, the math is definitely not mathing in this case. And I think that, with a lot of the coaches, we saw huge shifts, huge companies even dissolve. We saw some coaching companies in the space that were really, really reputable decide to even close the doors. And you wonder why. You wonder, like, why are we seeing this shift in the industry? I think there's nothing wrong with running a smaller team. I think a lot of people are more leaning towards that. That's not to say that there aren't some incredible, successful, bigger teams out there that have the structure and have the almost like turnkey system to like be able to sustain that level of a company that they're at. But there's also some coaches out there who are really struggling. And I think it comes down to the fact that we were never taught how to properly manage our finances, properly manage our time. Like we were almost like trained to just operate like a robot and not take the time for ourselves. Like I burnt myself out too because I wasn't taking care of myself the same way that I was preaching that to my own clients.
yeah. Yep. And I think we're seeing a shift already. I saw it a lot in 2024. Kind of like you were mentioning, a lot of big companies have dissolved or even shrunk. And I think when you don't put your clients first, and that's something I've learned like all along, I was like, I mean, I started as an hourly wage personal trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. Like I literally made $18 on the session for an hour, and that was at the time, I think like $4 over minimum wage or like $6 over minimum wage. Like I was doing all of this prep work and like making nothing, but it was because I genuinely I never got into fitness for the money. I got into it to make a true difference. And all along with online, I was like, that's what I want to return back to. Like I want to be in my roots of just, I'm here to help people. It's not all about the money. Sure, building a business, like you do have to worry about money, and like making money is a perk of being an entrepreneur. But I was like, there has to be a way to still care for the client while making a great living. And I think that we've finally really kind of like cracked that code, but we're seeing a shift in the industry of a lot of those bigger companies that were built on, I would argue, crumbling foundation, but they just found a way to go through. They're getting clients that are leaving because they are unhappy, and those clients are coming, like I've had multiple of them come to me and be like, I had this experience, and I don't know the company they were at, but it was like this was the experience I had, and it's like so wild to me. And so I think in the fitness industry, we're seeing one, a lot of CEO burnout, a lot of coach burnout, and a shift to where people want that genuine connection. I think people are seeing poor experiences online and going back in person. And so my goal is being online. Like, I don't want it to feel like there's a disconnect through a computer screen. Like, you should still feel like you can come to your coach and talk to them. You have direct access to them. And I think, again, that's what we really want to preach to coaches and the world is like, there is a way to have quality coaching online. You just have to do your research and know that like you are putting yourself in the best possible position to succeed. And if you are a coach dealing with burnout, you have to take care of yourself and you have to go back to your roots of like, why did you start? It's the same as we do for our clients when they're struggling and they're not staying consistent. I always go back to like, hey, why did you start here? Why did you start coaching with me from the get go? There's a reason why you started. You wanted to see change. There was a certain why that you had in your brain. And coaches have to go back to that too, instead of being so hungry for the next client, taking on a client that they don't love just because it's, money. It's
Yep.
being in integrity with your business.
Yeah. And all because you make these like big months, some months. Like I remember when I hit like our biggest month was an over 50K like collected month, which was wild. Like 2020 me, who was like, I just need 10 clients at $300 a month, like, and I'll be happy, right? It's like, it's almost like that whole premise kind of goes away or went away for me at some point. It was kind of like, I'm no longer happy. Like I would hit these 50K months and I'd be like, almost like numb. Like I was almost emotionless. And then meanwhile, my husband would be like, oh my God, this is so cool. You did that. You should be so proud of yourself. You have everyone else in your life hyping you up. And if you're sitting there and you're just literally emotionally numb to it and you're like, okay, but it's not enough. I need to do more. I need to do this, or I need to figure out a way to replicate that. Like it causes a spiral. Like I find when I was hitting my biggest months and progressively seeing that go up, I wasn't happier. Like, you know how they say like money doesn't buy happiness? Like I genuinely felt that like to my core of like I was making big months, but one, I wasn't paying myself enough for the work that I was putting in at that point to get to those big months. I wasn't in my zone of genius. I wasn't filling, it's almost like the love language of coaching. It's like I wasn't filling my own love language. And because of it, I felt so disconnected from my team, from my purpose. And I was just operating like a robot. And it took hitting big months to realize that I didn't want that big team. I didn't want that, 10-person team with me just running it by myself, which is why like I love the merger and I love what everything you and I have done, because it makes having a team actually more fun, more exciting, because we're both getting to lead our team. It's not just you. And it builds more sustainability for both of our personal goals as well. But I hit those big months and I was like, I'm just not content. So if you guys are on your journey and you're like, okay, I'm hitting these big months, but like, I'm not proud of myself, I'm not happy. I wish I had done more mindset work at that point. Like, I think I would have been able to maybe salvage a little bit of what I had and made it better. But instead, I was just completely burnt out at that point and completely dissatisfied with my business. That it's less of now needing to impress anybody with saying, my company makes X amount of money. And it's more of like, my company gets to make this impact. Like, we get to make this impact. We get to have alignment. Because the reality is, you have so many coaching programs out there that, yes, are underpaying their assistant coaches significantly, burning out the assistant coaches, not delivering the service that they need for their clients. And for me too, I was completely undervaluing the price of our program. Like, I was trying to get anybody in the door. And this goes back to our ins and outs episode. Like, I was trying to sell anybody who would breathe. And yet I wondered why, like, our retention wasn't the best, our client fulfillment, our success, like, wasn't the best. And at that, it's like, I would rather bring in less clients who are just more ideal than bring in more clients and hit these big months and feel completely burnt out because I'm just accepting anybody and everyone. And then I became the people pleaser coach, which is the complete opposite of my personality.
Yeah, it's so true. I resonate with all of that for sure. I was like, oh, I have no idea who's even in. That was where I got to a point of like kind of my first sneak peek at burnout was I was just signing people and I was forgetting. And I was like, that's a problem. I want to know the faces in my, and obviously, like when you have a big roster, it is a little bit hard to know everyone, but I was like, I want to know a little bit about them. Like, I want to know what's going on. I want to be connected. They're in my company. I want to know that they are succeeding and doing well. But I just recorded last week a module for Beyond the Cert, and it was about burnout. It's like all about burnout and just how to deal with it. And I wanted to share like just a few snippets of things I talked about in there that I feel like help me now avoid burnout because truthfully, the past 2 months have been a whirlwind. Not only travel, merger, we got a new puppy, which was horrible timing, by the way. 10 out of 10 do not recommend getting a puppy when you are your busiest in work. Like, there's no good time, right? It's kind of like there's no convenient time to invest in your health. Very similarly, there's no convenient time to take on a puppy. Like, they're a lot of work, but my COVID dog, way easier to take care of when I did not have a job. But with burnout, I think the first thing is being structured, more structured per day. There was a time in my business when I was just dipping my toes in everything every day. I remember my brother lived with me at the time when I doing business coaching, and he's like, "Do you just spend all day on your computer? Like, is there a time where you leave your office?" And I'd come out just to like refill my water bottle or maybe to get lunch. And I was like, well, this is just how it has to be. But I'm like, I was months into living in a new place and I wasn't even taking a break to go outside and feel the sunshine or like we have a pool. I like this whole last year when it was nice out, I literally took like 30-minute breaks to just go lay out by the pool and read during the day. And it was so peaceful. And so I think a big thing is having structure in your business to where in your everyday schedule, you aren't doing a little bit of everything every day. Like you have structured days. There was a time where I was checking in with my clients every day of the week. And then after that, I would have to do content. I would have to do planning for everything. And it was like, there was no creative flow for me because I was using both sides of my brain every day. And now it's like Mondays are my heavy client check-in day. I'm so focused. I'm in tune. It's like nothing else matters that day except for my clients. And when I get that all done and I'm in that headspace, I'm finding that I'm so much better off, given I do have a smaller roster than I had back then. And then like Wednesday's like an overflow day, same with Thursday, but I really try to get into my creative space those days to like film content, plan content, and I think just finding a schedule that ultimately works for you and caters to you, but also using Google Calendar. I was so back then, I like used a paper calendar. And I'm like,
Same.
how did I like
Yes.
serial killer trait? I'm sorry, like a paper calendar is great. Let me be clear. I still use my whiteboard for like to-dos. Like it's nice to just like have it up there. Google Calendar will send you a reminder of something you need to be doing. Google Calendar literally rules my life. And like I was so hesitant to it for so long. I was like, I'm old fashioned. I'm not gonna do it just like I was with like AI. I know we talked about this in that ins and outs episode. Like I was like, I am not using ChatGPT. I have a brain, I can use it. And I'm like, but I don't have to if I don't need to. Like I can use that on things I actually need to use it on. But Google Calendar, it's like sending me updates. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go work at a coffee shop. It's like a time hits. It's like you need to drive there, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's time for me to drive there. Like, hey, it's time for you to go work out. Okay, well, I need to go get ready to work out and go to the gym. And I build that time into my calendar. When you have a calendar telling you what to do, you stay on point so much more and you can avoid burnout because calendar is telling you to go eat lunch and take a break from your computer. Calendar is telling you to go walk your dog and get out in the sunshine. Like that has definitely helped me avoid burnout and stay sane through the busiest times.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think organizing my time was, yes, like when I was scaling fully, I was doing everything every day. There was no structure, there was no rhyme or reason. I love theming my days. Like, I love having themes of like, this day I do this day I do that. And I think we also forget sometimes, like, we got into entrepreneurship to have more freedom, to have more flexibility. And it's a luxury to be able to have that, to build your schedule. But when you get that, it's hard to set boundaries with yourself. It's so hard to go from working the 9 to 5 where you can sign off at 5 o'clock, you have no work to bring home with you, versus entrepreneurship where you are so passionate about where you're doing that. Almost like not honoring your boundaries feels admirable. Like you're almost like, it's cool. Like I'm doing, like, it's fine, whatever. It's like, no, stop being the savior. Stop thinking that that's like normal. And what I love about our mentor is like, when I had hired her back the second time, she was like, we're just going to have more fun. She was like, let's have more fun in business and life. Like, when was the last time you took like a Wednesday off early and like went and sat at the beach? Like, when was the last time you did these things? When was the last time you allowed yourself to go work out of a coffee shop, to go do all this stuff? And even with me going to Florida, like I'm going to Florida, I'm working on Friday, but then I'm going to take Saturday off to allow myself to have my fun, to be able to be present. Like, we don't have to constantly be bogged down or constantly feel like we're not doing enough when you are setting the tone for your days, for your weeks of like being organized with your schedule, organized with your to-dos. I think also going into avoiding burnout, hot take, something that helped me a lot was having a coach myself. Like genuinely, like I know we keep talking about that, but I can't say it enough. Like I was actually talking to Kenneth about this, and Kenneth was like, I think it was Kenneth, but we were talking about just how am I doing everything I'm doing right now? Like for you guys who don't see the true behind the scenes, like I think Kelsey and I can do a whole episode on like mergers. And if you guys are interested in that and understanding like the steps that we had to go through, since we decided to merge, it has been a sprint. Like, especially for like 2 weeks straight, we were doing like 12-hour work days. We were just like in it, doing everything, kind of going back to like what we stopped doing, which was doing everything in one day, but like we had to. And it's like, what is the difference between the hours I was putting in and not feeling burnt out? Like you and I had talked, and I think that's really important when you're going through a merger, is like having that communication with your business partner of like, how are you feeling? Like, do you need a rest day? Like, do you need something from me? But genuinely, it's like, how did I go about this merger not feeling burnt out like I did 2 years ago, making my highest revenue months? Like, what is the biggest difference there for me? And I think one, it's alignment, it's passion, but I have a coach during this right now. Like I have a coach, and is it the most ideal time to be working on my fitness journey? Probably not. Like honestly, if somebody looked at my schedule right now, they'd be like, how are you in a deficit? Like, how are you doing this? Like guys, my carbs are low right now. I'm like, how am I functioning? And it's genuinely because I have excitement in my life. I have excitement for my goals, and I have a coach that I can like talk about these things with and be like, hey, it was a really busy week. Here's what I have coming up. Here's my plan for the week. Like, even as coaches, we need to talk that stuff out. So that has been a huge, huge, huge game changer for me, avoiding burnout during this season where I have someone else helping me build that structure. And when I'm doing carb cycling right now, I have a coach who's literally telling me, here's your 4 days at your moderate carbs, here's your 3 days at your low carbs. And I just get to be on autopilot. I get to go into the gym. My workouts are already there for me. I get to just turn off. I don't require myself to film every single workout right now if I'm not feeling up for it and I just want to disconnect and be present with myself. So be it, I'll do that. If I want to film, I will. Like I'm giving myself a lot more of that right now.
Yeah. I think having boundaries, there hasn't been like, I've been very strict on my sleep because I'm like, if I do not get seven, like minimum 7 hours, ideally 7.5 to 8, I will be a gremlin and I will not be productive during the day. And I think just like setting your strict boundaries for yourself, especially around your clients, if you are a coach, like not allowing yourself to answer client questions. And that's the beauty of having it. I know we talk about EverFit, Beauty of having client communication is ever in Everfit is that I am not answering client questions after probably 5 p.m. Maybe even earlier because I have other tasks. And so I'm able to delegate different tasks throughout the day so that I'm not, getting distracted, dipping my toes in things, and able to still have like, it's not a lot of quality time, but at least a snippet with my husband at the end of the night. It's like, hey, it was nice seeing you today. We can maybe watch like a show and go to bed, but it's just really making sure you're protecting your peace. And like you said with Kendall, like it's such a blessing having her because she put me on like a you're working a half day. This was not right now. And I know in Q2, it will look more like this. Like you need to schedule a half day. You need to schedule a day where you're not on social media at all. The first hour and last hour of the day, like you're not on your phone. And I've actually started to try to implement that back in just a little bit. So I'm not waking up, rolling over and immediately answering messages from the day before that I didn't get to, or immediately checking my email in bed. And it's protecting that peace. And I think slowly I'm starting to get back to that. And I've noticed I'm just so much more productive during the day when I can protect my peace. So I think a big thing is still prioritizing yourself, even amidst burnout. When you feel like you have 1,000 things to do, it's also okay to ask for help. Like, get an assistant, get someone to help. You don't have to merge your company, but like, you can't do everything at once. Like you need to protect your peace or you will fully on burnout.
I think too with that as well is it's like you don't have to what's the worst thing that happens if you don't complete that one task? Like genuinely, that extra task that you have sitting on your to-do list, you're like, I have to do it tonight. It's like, what happens if you did it tomorrow? Like what happens if you gave yourself permission to truly just like take a rest, take a seat, right? Take accountability for maybe where you're falling short if you feel like you're not maximizing your time enough, like whatever it may be. Take accountability, but also give yourself permission. Like I did not give myself permission to rest. Like it was always like, this has to get done. This has to get done. This has to get done. And I think when you're working a service-based industry and job, it's so hard because you feel so loyal and committed to everybody. But the reality is like even the clients you're working with get PTO. Even the clients you're working with sign off work at 5 p.m. I'm sorry, but if a client doesn't respect that and expects you to be on demand, that's not the right client for you. Like, that is not how anybody should operate. Like, if it's an emergency, call 911. Like, that's not what your coach is for. And nothing that we are doing is that urgent where us not responding after 7 p.m. isn't going to kill somebody. Like, it's going to be okay. And I almost had to tell myself that. And when I started setting boundaries, did it suffer some things? Yes, because clients went from getting all this access to me to then not. Like I started setting those boundaries, having the time blocking for it. And so I guess all of this being said, like it's just, I hope that this can be a permission slip for you guys of one, if you are feeling burnout, do some things for yourself right now, like be able to time block your calendar, go in, create tasks, restructure. Don't feel like the bad person for even having to go to your clients and be like, hey, I'm restructuring the workout or check-in schedule a little bit. Instead of check-ins on Monday through Friday, I'm doing all of my check-ins on Mondays and Wednesdays now. I'm going to assign you to a Wednesday day. I'm going to assign you to a Monday day. There's nothing wrong with that because honestly, you will be a better coach for your clients. They might not see that right away. You will be a better coach for your clients because energetically, you're protecting yourself a lot more. And if you're also not feeling burnout right now, but you're like, I want to avoid this because I'm in the beginning stages of building a business, be present with yourself, trust your gut, communicate. I can't say it enough, like communicate what you want. I think therapy is really helpful too. Like I go to therapy every other week and I have absolutely loved it. It's been amazing to just like set a boundary for myself, have an hour or two to talk to someone that's like literally not affiliated at all with like, they don't know my family, they don't know my business, they don't know anything. I just get a safe place to like talk about any struggles I'm having. And get that extra validation or reassurance or direction of when I need to rest too. Because sometimes we can't trust ourselves to tell ourselves when to rest. Sometimes we need someone else to tell us, like, when was the last time you did this? Whether that is with a coach, whether that's with a therapist, or whether that's even your own partner that you're living with or a roommate you're living with that can just kind of see that in you and can, out of love, tell you respectfully, hey, like, you need to slow down for a second and like just take a day off. Like, nothing will burn down if you take a day off. I promise you that.
Yep. You're only one person. So I feel like too, like biggest takeaway is also like, I hope no one ever reaches burnout. Like I hope if you're listening to this and you feel like you're on the brink of burnout, I really hope you don't. I don't think that that is a prerequisite to having a successful business is reaching burnout. I think it's definitely a learning experience, but I hope you can take this episode and just take in everything we've mentioned, protect your peace, and like I hope I would not wish burnout and like just that feeling of feeling lost and stuck on anyone at all. So I hope you can take this episode and just like implement in some of the things in your own life. I think at the end of the day, if you are an entrepreneur and approaching burnout, remember why you became an entrepreneur. It was to have freedom and flexibility. And especially if you're younger, like your 20s, 30s, 40s, whether you have kids or not. Like for me, I'm like, I don't have kids right now and I want to be able to experience life before I am in charge of other lives. So like if that is you and you are an entrepreneur, remember like you started this for some freedom and like take advantage of that. If you aren't traveling, if you aren't going on a random Wednesday and taking a half day of work, like you should be able to play even amidst building. So just keep that in mind and like protect your peace, protect yourself and you'll be good.
The last thing I want to add too is there's no badge of honor for anybody who works the most in the world. Like there's literally no badge of honor. You don't get rewarded for burnout. Like you just don't. You get rewarded for taking care of yourself. And your clients are going to see that. Your staff is going to see that. Your mentors are going to see that. Your own coach will see that. Like you get so much more satisfaction out of actually learning your boundaries and setting up a really good flow for yourself. Because I think in the beginning, I thought, oh, all these other people are grinding and growing and doing all this stuff and talking about how they work till like 2 a.m. and built out the most amazing thing in the world. And I'm like, am I not enough? Like, am I not doing enough? Is that why I can't keep up? Like, what? Like, it almost forces you into burnout more. Like, you're already burnt out, and then you feel like, oh, I haven't received my badge of honor. Like, let me go burn myself out more because it's still not enough. Like, maybe instead of continuing down the burnout, maybe you do something different. And I like to call it just like the rubber band effect. Like, if you're feeling burnout, if you're feeling that overwhelm, like, take the rubber band, pull her back. Maybe that's not taking as many calls. Maybe you're blocking out a Friday and you're saying, hey, Friday, I don't do any calls on Fridays. Even if someone wants to get on a call with me, I'm going to bump them to Monday because I need Fridays to energetically recharge and not talk to anybody, right? Like having those boundaries is actually where I think you get rewarded and where I will give you a badge of honor if you have boundaries. Like that is what I reward people on. I don't reward people on burning themselves out.
Yeah. And like one more thing to add, keep adding, but also like it's okay to periodize your schedule. Like we periodize training and nutrition for clients. Like there are times where you just are in more of a grind phase and maybe you don't have as much time for yourself. Still take time for yourself, but there are times, Chris and I've called this our 90-day sprint. Like we are just spending more time in the business right now getting everything set up and good to go for the rest of the year so that it's not a full sprint for the entire year where we're again burning yourself out. That's part of the reason you're burning out is that you're trying to work as hard as possible all the time versus taking some time for you and having some off time from business where you can be more relaxed and you can be working a little bit less so that you have more of that flexibility and freedom. So make sure that you're just periodizing that so you're not like just grinding all day long, all year long, because that can lead to an aspect of burnout. There's obviously people who are built different. I call them the David Goggins of the business industry. I think there's a time to be David Goggins, and I also think there's a time to chill. So
Yes, absolutely. Don't forget why you started in the first place. Like you started to build that freedom and flexibility. And if you're feeling like by building, you're actually farther and farther and farther away from that, that's probably a telltale sign that like something needs to give. And that's where like Kelsey and I are here for you guys. You know, if you don't even have to talk coaching with us, it's literally just like come to our DMs and vent about what you have going on. Obviously, if you're in the market for a coach, Kelsey and I both work one-on-one with our coaches. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can get the help that you probably want. There's amazing mentors in the space as well. If you guys are confused on like which mentor is a good one, an ethical one, somebody that you're looking to help scale your business, but has respect to the fact of that work-life balance. We've worked with a couple great mentors that do respect that and honor it. So we're happy to, direct you guys where you need to go.
yep. And to finish off, it is now February 12th when this is releasing, which means our cohort closes on February 16th for enrollment. This is basically our Beyond the Cert course, but in a cohort. So if you are someone who has started a course before, you haven't finished said course and it's just still sitting in your laptop waiting for you to collect CEUs, but you just haven't finished it, the cohort is a great way to stay up on the course content. But along the way, you're also going to get, well, you're going to get lifetime access to the Beyond the Cert course, which is good for CEUs. And we'll include what those CEUs are in the description. But also, you're going to get 12 weeks of support-led experience with Chris and I. Our registered dietitian is also going to be intermingled in there as well for some assistance. You're going to get Slack channel support, but you're also going to get 6 live calls with us to break down even further some of that course content. We have a few guests lined up as well, and it's going to be insane. Also through Sunday, you're going to get 2 additional nutrition or client protocol assessments. We'll send you via Loom. So you get 2 of those to take advantage of as a little bonus for signing up. So if you're interested, the link is in the bio to register. And we're pumped to freaking start this cohort. It's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I'm really excited for anybody who genuinely like has seen for you guys who are literally listening to this and wondering like, what is it that Kelsey and Chris do? What is that different from, business mentorship in the space? It's like you have the business mentors who teach you the sales and the lead generation, but you don't have the mentors that teach you how to actually apply everything you've learned from textbook and, YouTube videos and all this stuff that you're doing, because like as coaches, we kind of nerd out and we want to know that stuff. And then you go to sit down and you go to program for a client and you're like, oh shit, like I have no idea like how to do this. I have no idea how to explain to my client how to go through a reverse diet. And also just like you may understand the concept, but you may not know how to translate that to actually telling the client how to do it. Like I have zero doubt that anybody listening to this understands how to put their client through a deficit, but do you know how to actually put that in layman's terms for the client itself? And that's something too that we're going to be diving into, is just like helping you guys like approach this with your clients and talk to them about it too. Because I find that we kind of get stuck of like, how do we actually present that? So it's really teaching you how to be a really good coach in order to also make all the effort that you are putting towards sales and marketing like that much better and that much more successful, because you're actually being able to give your clients some stellar results, which increases retention, increases client referrals, makes people even on the internet be like, oh my God, I want a piece of that pie over there. Like, let's freaking go. So I'm really excited to see you guys in the cohort, and you'll get all of the support that you need, which I'm stoked for. So you just got to sign up by the 16th.
Yep. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.
Woo! See you guys then.